This podcast is sponsored by Atozi, the podcasting agency, helping amplify your brand's voice. If you give your brand a microphone, what would it say? On today's episode of Curve Ahead, I am joined by Leslie Steele, a pioneering tech leader with over 2 decades of experience in digital transformation. She's the CEO of InterImage, which specializes in application monetization for federal agencies, and the co-founder of Pixel Rain, a platform reshaping how organizations securely adapt generative AI. In this episode, we explore why Leslie believes you should never mix service and product businesses and how separating them can help both her companies thrive. We also cover how Pixel Rain's AI Hub is helping enterprise deploy Gen AI securely using tools like Ghostwriter, CodeWriter, and embedded RAG tech without sending sensitive data to third parties. If you're trying to understand how Gen AI can be rolled out across your organization safely, scalably, and without hallucinations, this episode offers a masterclass in practical AI integrations. Let's dive in. On today's episode of Curve Ahead, I am joined by Leslie Steele, the CEO of InterImage and co-founder of Pixel Rain. Leslie, do you mind introducing yourself?
Brian, thanks for having me. And sure, so I'll give you a little bit of information about my background. After graduate school, I went into management consulting, did a lot of things around process improvement. That's what management consultants did. Moved into the telecom industry and, worked my way up, eventually serving as a CFO and then leading a division. I had left and was trying to figure out what was next for me. And in the interim, I was doing some consulting work for a company that did work for the federal government, but had started up a new division and it was struggling. So they asked me to come in and do some consulting on that. They wanted me to join, and I thought that was not where I wanted to go because the owner actually of this about a $30 million company said that they had over 30 areas of focus. To me, that was an oxymoron. Didn't make any sense. I'm driving home one evening and my husband says, I have an idea. Let's start a company. I thought it was kind of crazy. After 3 days of pitching me, I said, all right, I'll get this going, do it for a couple of years, then I'm going back to corporate America. So, 27 years later, I've never gone back to corporate America. So the concept for InterImage was to around the internet, which in the mid 90s was brand new technology. And our concept was to bring that technology inside the bounds of an organization, intranets, get data out of filing cabinets and make it accessible. Today, that sounds obvious. What? But back in the mid 90s, it was unheard of. And so a brand new concept, the term intranet hadn't even been coined at that point in time. So that was InterImage. Jump forward and still doing that work today on InterImage, but jump forward a little over 20 years. And we're working a lot with the predecessors of ChatGPT, the BART models, early versions of exploring AI, trying to understand how to really bring it in effectively into organizations and creating capabilities around those. And with the advent of ChatGPT that, spun the world on end and changed everything, we realized that we had the foundations of our product. And 6 months later or so, started Pixel Rain. I am a firm believer in that adage that you don't mix service and product companies. Could have done it under the umbrella of InterImage, but yeah, they're two different models. And by confusing them, too often I think companies don't do either one well anymore. So we wanted Pixel Rain separate company, separate employees, separate business model, separate focus. And so that was the start of Pixel Rain. And, there's obviously some connections between the companies. One, InterImage is a service provider, technology provider of Pixel Rain. So there are some connections, but Pixel Rain's focused on the product and InterImage on services. That was a long answer, wasn't
No,
it?
no, no. That was a great answer, and I love that you were able to tie it together. It's the one thing like I'm searching for a question around the service versus product. I think that there are a lot of organizations who offer both, and I think you're right that they offer both, but they never really excel at either one.
Yeah.
So was that really kind of like the deciding factor of I'm just going to split them out? I think that there's a likelihood that they'll be more successful individually versus rolling up into my existing organization.
Very much the case. As I mentioned, it is a different business model, different way that you need to focus, different way that you acquire customers. And I was very concerned that if we left it under InterImage, we would dilute the focus that we needed to have on Pixel Rain to be able to move quickly, adapt as the market adjusted, and push forward with this product. And so really wanted to keep them very separate. And I'm the crossover between the two.
So let me ask you about that, right? That you are the crossover between the two. You had just mentioned that there's a very different customer acquisition strategy for your product versus service. What other like challenges have you seen in kind of focus? I mean, not necessarily switching focus, but splitting focus into two different types of businesses.
For me, it's like completely chaotic. What am I doing at a given minute of the day? But I think something that's really helped me navigate that is that InterImage has always had a strong focus on leading edge technologies. Where do we drive the customer to next? And I think that Gen AI is an essential element of that answer today. And so, that is very much part of the conversation, even in InterImage, even though that's a service focus. And so now there's this product that we've got with Pixel Rain that InterImage can talk about the services around that. It becomes an organizing message. And so I think that having a connection is useful. Yes, at times it becomes chaotic for me, but I'm managing to balance somehow or another. Not all days, but generally.
So let's focus on InterImage just for a second.
Sure.
You had mentioned that InterImage kind of was like on the cutting edge of the intranet. How has that service offering evolved over the 20 plus years you've been in business?
Oh, quite a bit. I would say really the central theme around what InterImage does is application modernization. We do some systems modernization, but a lot of it's around application modernization, application development, sustainment. And, there's been inflection points along the way. So back in the mid 90s, it was understanding the internet and web technologies and bringing in a house with internet capability and starting to build applications when there were barely even languages to be able to do that. I think one of the first applications we built was to support spectrum management, and it was done all in JavaScript. I mean, it's laughable today. 2005 time frame, we started really pushing business process management software, another evolution in the ability to manage processes, complex processes in organizations. In the teens, we got very involved in robotic process automation, another iteration that allowed very low cost, quick turn process automation for certain types of processes, very effective. And we were one of the first people talking about it in the federal government. And now, Gen AI at the front of the conversation. It's what the technologies have evolved, but I feel like, oh no, we're out there in the beginning again, educating people, slamming my head against the wall some days, but it's fun, it's interesting, it's really engaging when you get to um, track new technologies and what's happening.
So it seemed like there was a couple of pivotal moments with InterImage. Were those changes driven internally, or did you have clients come to you saying, "Hey, I kind of want to explore this thing," and then you realize there was an additional opportunity for you to grow into that division?
It's really always been internal, and it's stemmed from tracking the market, paying attention to the market, and looking at what are the challenges that for InterImage it's government, what are the challenges that they're facing to be more efficient in their and effective in their business processes. That stems back from my early career, business process improvement, process reengineering. So how do we make it better for our customer? And so we've always paid attention to what are the technologies that could make it better.
That makes sense, right? And it's interesting having these conversations with so many different leaders. It seems like some of them have been always been forward thinkers, and other ones, not necessarily that they've been behind the times. However, they've allowed their customers to be like, "Hey, can you do this thing too?" And that's when they realize, "Oh, there's this additional opportunity. We should really lean into it. Since we already have this projected revenue stream to help drive it,
Right.
we could lean into it just a little bit more." It's interesting for organizations that have been in business for quite a while, how they evolve over time and what the factors were to force the evolution, whether that was customer focus, if it
Right.
was driven by the customer, or internally focused and driven by internal processes. So I appreciate that. No, that was cool. Let's take a step back. At 15,000 feet, tell me about Pixel Rain, what it is that you're doing, what the service or the actual product
Product.
is, and who it is that you're working with or delivering it to.
Sure. So a robust product. We've developed what we're calling the Pixel Rain AI Hub, and it is a couple of things. One, it's an enablement to deploy broadly across the organization. And what's needed for that to deploy confidently is security around your data assets and who can do what, and then ongoing monitoring and control of that ecosystem. So you think of an AI ecosystem in an organization, it's the employees, it's the AI agents that are doing what the employee is asking it to do, it's the data that's being used by those agents, and it's the LLMs that are using the data in accordance with what the agents are saying. So it's really four components. So our AI Hub manages those four components to enable organizations to securely and confidently roll out Gen AI broadly across the organization, knowing that they can manage and monitor and control what's going on. They have the visibility to see and understand what the activities are in that AI ecosystem. Now, it's not enough just to have that platform. So embedded in our platform, we have some tools that employees then get access to. One is Ghostwriter. So that's essentially like a text editor that lets you build long and complex documents the way you would in, say, a Word. And so operates rather differently from, for example, a chat GPT, right? Who's giving you back little snippets. We have a code writer, which is a lot like a text editor, but for coders. And it lets you write code, edit code, add code comments, write documentation, write test cases, analyze code so you can understand what's going on. Really important with legacy systems where so often users don't even know the business rules that are embedded in that code. Okay, this speeds up that whole process rather dramatically. And this is an absolute key, what we call PX Embed. It's a RAG solution, so Retrieval Augmented Generation. It lets the LLMs retrieve company-specific information when it's generating content. So it's not looking at what's at the internet, but it's answering in the context of the company's information. And so those are some basic tools. But what's different about the approach that we've taken is it's not a SaaS model. You're not sending your data up to a third party, trusting that they're going to protect your data or deciding, well, I'm going to let it have this data and not that data. Instead, it operates in your ecosystem, in your company's environment, either on-prem or in your private gov cloud or private cloud environment. So you can open the doors to your data, apply RAG, and that makes the tools so much more powerful than an employee trying to use ChatGPT or even one of these, SaaS solutions that are kind of essentially wrappers that protect your enterprise data, but really you're going outside your environment. Or even there are tools out there that are walled gardens that you operate with what they give you. We have an open platform, so you can build your own tools and add them on, and you still own those tools. You built them, but you can access them through Pixel Rain and get the same monitoring, control, governance, security, etc. So we've taken a different approach and have a robust solution that meets needs of really, honestly, any organization out there.
So let me ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One is around education, right? You had mentioned you're spending so much time educating people on, AI and data. I'm assuming probably data privacy, how it's being used, this, that, and the other thing, but also around RAG, since that is a relatively newer thing that has kind of come to light on, we'll say Reddit, when it comes to like being able to do prompt engineering, this, that, and the other thing. So education. What is like the most common misconceptions when it comes to AI, data use, and what is the one most common thing you just wish you could answer to people flat out? Here's the number one bullet, FAQ, answered.
I would say it's around hallucinations because who hasn't played with ChatGPT and asked some question and got a bizarre answer back and it seems so confident, but it's not. And that's part of the reason why we are such big advocates for RAG and, bringing this all into the company's boundary so that they can take advantage of and, dramatically reduce hallucinations or misinformation. Sometimes, even with RAG, the answer can seem confident, but it's a little off base. But you're not getting the crazy responses that you can from the internet.
So how long have you guys been including RAG as part of your offering? Because like from a consumer's perspective, from me, like just being involved with a lot of online activity to try to stay up on the most cutting edge thing, RAG hasn't really surfaced until within the last couple of months. So I'm curious how
Well,
long you've been
it's
leveraging it.
been around longer. We've been
Oh,
leveraging
sure.
it for a solid year. Very early on in one of the first iterations of the product, we deployed it against InterImages using RAG, InterImages proposal repository, all the proposals and white papers that we had written, and started using that for, writing proposals, writing marketing material, writing white papers, whatever. And so that's been a good solid year. I think the tools have gotten better. We provided more of a do-it-yourself RAG capability in Pixel Rain with PX Embed, and we've only had that additional capability offering in the platform for a couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, from like a prompt engineering perspective, I know that it's relatively new for everybody else who doesn't create an AI product
Yeah.
to get more involved. But like it's always kind of been a part of the documentation that was recommended by any of the commercial service providers of like, you need to do this, 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 and this in
Yeah.
order for you to get the most optimal response back. So like I guess I've always kind of done it, but now I've really tried to lean into providing more documentation with regards to like here's my like all of my branding correspondence, like here's the tone that I'm looking for. Now write this for me in my brand, in my style, go. So it's interesting
Makes a
that
big
you've
difference.
it really does, right? Because now it's instead of producing something that is quite generic for anybody in any sort of space, now it's personalized to me and my brand, and more so towards my writing style when it comes to written content. Obviously, there has to be a human involved when it comes to the output to just make sure
Always.
that what it's producing is still on brand
Oh, yeah.
to cut down. I mean, I think a lot of the commercially available models right now are less than 5% hallucination rate, but like 95% great. But if you hit that 5%, you're like looking at it, reading it, and scratching your head. Just review it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think any of these systems require human in the loop, right? It's just, when it knocks out 90% of the workload, that's a gigantic difference. And then you can spend more quality time on that last, 5 or 10%, and you get a much better outcome. And you still save time, a lot of time.
I mean, if you think about it just from like a single proposal or a single blog post, right? Like, that would typically take someone a couple of hours potentially to write. If it's a blog post, say it's like 1,200 words, that's going to take some time to research, write, and create it. Whereas, like, if I have a good prompt set up with a good rag, that's only going to take me 5 minutes to do, and then it's going to take me another 15 to edit, make sure that I'm posting it. Like
Exactly.
the cut, like I'm saving X my time by enabling AI to assist
Yep.
in daily tasks.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you've had that experience and you really understand the impact of that.
Well, I mean, I work with such a small team that we have to do so many things all by ourselves, right? And
Mhm.
it started out with it just being me. And when it was just me, I'm way further extended than I ever needed to be. But it forced me to learn a lot of things and be resourceful for the tools that are available. And with the emergence of AI commercially over the last couple of years, like that's really helped, I think, a lot of solo and small organizations be able to leverage a very powerful tool they wouldn't necessarily have had before, um, in their business and on their business, to help them think outside of themselves and deliver beyond what they would have been able to do by themselves.
And then you start scaling that up to mid-sized companies, large companies, and you realize it's just millions upon millions of dollars in savings and capacity growth that they can achieve through this. And yeah, a lot of big companies have adopted Gen AI, agentic workflows, but I think it's far less so in those mid-sized companies, and they're missing a gigantic opportunity.
Is that how you typically kind of position yourselves on here's, if you were to implement these three workflows in your business, you would save X amount of time and or dollars because now you're cutting down on the amount of manual labor involved for you to be able to execute this thing?
Yes, yeah, that's an important part of it. I think that there is an argument around error reduction, that a lot of organizations do appreciate, but isn't everybody always looking for more efficiency, do more with less? Certainly in the federal government, that has been a mantra, do more with less. There's a limit to what you can do until you hit Gen AI. And then the doors come open, and you can, in fact, very effectively do more with less.
So let me kind of pivot into a new question based off of that. What is the biggest challenge your organization face in the next year, and what are the steps you guys are taking to kind of overcome that?
Well, for InterImages, we do operate in the federal space, and um, it's always a challenge educating, right? The federal government is a very large and highly complex environment with people that are interested in being on the leading edge of technology and people that are terrified of any level of change and everything in the middle. Educating people and helping them understand the impact, that's always a challenge. For Pixel Rain, we're a small company, and getting the word out is really a challenge, right? How do we stretch our limited resources to reach as many people as we can? It's not like we're going to run big TV or radio advertising campaigns. It ain't happening, right? But how can we reach as many people and educate them, help them understand what value this can bring to their organization? And so it's that. So try and be out there, talk to as many people as I can, and get the word out. But that, that's it. That's the
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah, and I think that that's pretty common for a lot of organizations is just being known in your space for whatever it is that you're excelling at the moment.
Right.
And getting your message in front of that 2% who are ready to buy right now.
Exactly. Exactly. You got to find those people who are very forward leaning, the early adopters.
Yes, 100%. Well, Leslie, you've been fantastic, and I think that this segues nicely into this next bit. At the end of each one of my podcasts, I give all of my guests 90 seconds to plug anything that they're passionate about. So in your case, this could be InterImage, this could be Pixel Rain, it could be both, or anything else that you're passionate about. So without further ado, the next 90 seconds are yours.
Okay, well, I am, and I'm sure this has come through, very passionate about the impact of Gen AI on processes, business processes, process improvement, making them more efficient and more effective. And so I love what I'm doing. It's very fun to stay on top of this rapidly moving train, as I said the other day when I was speaking to a group of senior people in the Intel community. Gen AI is moving forward at blinding speed, right? So you get on the train or you're going to be rapidly left behind. No more, as I put it, cautious consideration. Got to move forward because your competitors are. And so I'm very passionate about how to use Gen AI, but it's not just jump on the train and hope for the best. You've got to do it in an effective way. And that means doing that with forethought, with control. It means understanding how to take those baby steps and take them very, very quickly, but to move forward with an efficient program, effective program that will allow you to very securely deploy Gen AI organization wide. So, I believe that Pixel Rain is that tool suite that can make the difference. And I'm passionate about helping organizations make that difference. The mantra I've always had throughout my career is about making a difference for employees, making a difference for our customers first and foremost. And it's fun to be part of that journey of making a difference.
Well, Leslie, thanks again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.